I did forget about that. And it makes the title of my talk all the more appropriate, which is Making Games in Austin, a Survivor's Guide. Like John said, I'm Patrick Curry. These are some of the games I've made or worked on or helped people make. I've been at this for a long time, and I like to say I've made a game for everything that has a screen, except maybe like digital SLR cameras, but there's always time for that. I've been making games for a while. I've been in software forever, coming up on my 20th work anniversary, which is kind of terrifying. And I've sort of done it all. I've made games, I've taught, I've made internet stuff. I'm now kind of combining all of that in my new venture, making mobile development tools. But a couple annotations here on my career. The first is that I grew up here. I wasn't born here. I'm not one of those rare unicorns. My wife is, though, and she's all too happy to tell you about it. But I got my start here. I absolutely got my break. All of my first jobs, everyone I knew was here in Austin, and tried to escape a few times. Always got pulled back until there was sort of that console crash in the early 2000s when a whole lot of us moved up to Chicago. There was just like this ex-Texans club up in Chicago making video games, and I worked at Midway and Wide Load up there. And then I came back. I came back in 2011 and started a new studio and still basically running that company. So I think I have a kind of interesting perspective of this last 20 years with 7 years in the middle missing. And so John asked us, why did I move back to Austin? Well, there's lots of reasons you could move back to Austin. You know, a job, weather, cheap housing, lots and lots and lots of potential reasons for why you could move back to Austin. But really, I have a special relationship with Austin, and that's my family. We moved back for family reasons, first and foremost. My parents are here, my wife's family's here, wanted to have another kid, and wanted them to like hang out with their grandparents. And we thought about our perfect day, and the perfect day was that we would hang out with them, watch football, have grandparents, grill a little bit, drink a Shiner, and that'd be it. That would be a perfect day in my life. And so we set out to make that happen. So my family lives here, and that's ultimately why I'm in Austin. That's why I want to live here. But there's this really special conflict of interest between like living and living in the game industry. And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how you can survive the game business and tie it back to Austin. But for the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years, basically ever since we crunched and almost died at Midway, I've been very, very keen on surviving and not killing myself and my coworkers making games. So like Jen, I have a top 10 list, more or less, top ways to survive the game industry, because the shit's gonna hit the fan. And it's the game industry, it does, so let's just like let's not pretend that it doesn't, and let's be ready for it when it happens. So here's what you need. You family, right? Like, I would not have gotten through some of those horrible experiences and crunches and just the crazy stuff that happens without love and support of my family, and so thank you. And you also need friends, and you know, we spend so much time working on our projects, whether you're working at a megacorp or working on an indie team with just a couple people. You better like who you're working with, because if not, you'll kill each other and not survive. So you need friends that you work with. It's always a double-edged sword working with friends, but ultimately, even if you're not friends when you start a project, you're gonna become friends by the end, because you've been through some pretty serious, crazy stuff. Next up, you also need friends you don't work with. And I'm really bad about this, because I'm always like, I'm working on something awesome. Everyone I know, let's do it together. Come on, let's team up. And then you're like, wait a minute, shit's hitting the fan, like it always does. And I don't have anyone to call and like go cry on their shoulder or get a beer with them. So it's equally important that you have friends in the industry that you're not working with. Also, when something totally blows up in your face, you need those friends who work elsewhere, so you can call them up and be like, I need a job, like right now. My kids need to eat. So definitely foster those relationships. Call up someone that you worked with 3 years ago that you remember and that you like, and be like, hey, what's up? Let's hang out. If you're a GDC, let's go get a beer. Also, reoccurring theme tonight is we need skills, right? Stuff is changing so fast, you have to learn new things. I started my career sort of as a programmer, then I was a game designer for a long time, then I was like a producer, executive boss type guy doing contracts, and now I write code again. And I write code because I have to, because that's what my business demands. And so I really want to stress that you always have to be learning. It doesn't matter if you're an 800-year vet like Gordon or just getting started in the industry, you have to learn new things. Also, you really, really need mentors. You need to foster those special relationships that are more than just friends. These are people who you can ask, like, what is going on here? Like, this situation looks kind of fucked up. Am I right? And you need someone to be like, yeah, dude, that's effed. Don't do that. And those aren't necessarily your friends. This is just someone that you find in the community, and maybe you have coffee with them once a month. Maybe you just call them up and write an email and be like, hey, I really like what you're doing, and I respect you, and I don't want a job. I just want to know how to not F up all the time. And really good people are going to be generous with the time and help you out there. So I'd recommend that you find them. And if you're someone who knows how to F up really bad, guess what? You're a mentor now. You need to pass on that knowledge, whether it's teaching formally or just, being accessible and being nice to people who email you and say, please help. Also, I didn't really know how to put this slide together. It sort of echoes that the don't be a dick ethos that's popular in the game industry. But like the work you do, that's really important. What you make is important. But what the people that you work with are going to remember the most is how you did it, how you held yourself. Were you professional? Were you nice? Were you friendly? Did you say thank you when it was an absolutely horrible situation and someone stayed up for 4 days to fix some stupid bug no one's ever going to notice but Sony Europe found? You have to still be nice and polite and professional. Because when you do call those friends and you're saying, oh my God, I need a job, please help me, they're gonna remember if you said thank you or not. And if you did, you got a much better chance of them saving your bacon. Also, you need trust. And this is a hard one because when I was trying to break into games coming up in Austin, it was like Origin, and that was a very closed box that I was not able to break into. And it was so secretive. And it was like, hey, what's going on? How are you doing this? Like, oh, well, it's very difficult, and we can't tell you, and it's a secret. Luckily, I found other people who were willing to open up the black box and explain to me it's not really that tricky. But you need trust. You need trust in people to share your information. You need trust in people that you work with. It doesn't always come naturally. And sometimes you just have to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to jump off this bridge, and there's either like water down there or a boat or a bunch of like rabid hyenas, but I'm going to really trust that there's water. So, Evan, let's do it. And also you need honesty. There's so much communication in the game industry, whether you're on the business side of things or on the just like in the trenches writing code day in, day outside. And I hate crunch. I'd say that crunch is probably my #1 enemy in the game industry. And when I think about what causes crunch, I think it's usually because someone's lying. And they might be lying to themselves, but they might be lying that they know what they're doing. They might be lying that a product is further along than it is. They might be lying that they're, been working around the clock for eight months when they haven't. But, if you don't lie, if you're just honest with people and say if you can do something, or just be honest and say if you want to do something, people are going to ask you to do something. Hey, could you come in this weekend? Just be honest and say no. Or say, how much overtime pay will I be receiving? You also need whiskeys. Remember I talked about friends? You need friends that you do things with outside of making games, even if they're asking you to stay at work all night. You need some whiskey. You need to get out and go drunk. We would have huge fights at Midway, probably because we were crunching all the time. But you know what? The core group of us who actually shipped that game, we went out and we got crunk. And we solved the big problems that way. And we would come in on Monday and be like, hey, boss, we solved this scheduling thing, blah, blah, blah. And be like, oh, how'd you do it? And we'd be like, booze. All right, so I repeated family in here because it's really important to me. But also, you got to realize that you're going to end up working with people that become more than just friends. They become your family. And you're not related by blood, but Lord knows I have some people in Austin that I consider as close as family. And it's just because we've been through some crazy stuff together. And, I'm going to mess up, but they're going to let me know, and thank God for them. Finally, you need luck. Now, I could have said perseverance here, but I was really lucky to find mentors when I was young who helped me get started. One in particular was a man named Dewey Winburn. He was totally awesome. He helped start South by Southwest Interactive. He was a super special and influential guy in Austin. Unfortunately, he passed away, but I recommend you check out this website and see his good works. And I owe a lot of my career. I owe probably the first decade of my career to Dewey. So, thank you, Dewey. Thank you, Austin, for having me back. I hope in 20 years I can come back and tell you how totally crazy things are again in 20 years from now. So, thank you.